Hello and welcome to the Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Sort of 48 hours-ish on, might be by the time you watch this, on from Aberdeen and Hibs' progression to the third round of the UEFA Europa Conference League. It's pretty much decided after last week. Aberdeen won the first leg against Häcken 5-1. Häcken obviously from Gothenburg in Sweden. Aberdeen fans know a wee bit about that city. And Hibs won 3-0 against Andorran Minnows Santa Coloma 3-0. Santa Coloma were down to 9 men, Hibs down to 10 men, but if it weren't for those red cards, a really bizarre refereeing performance, that game would have been 6 or 7, and it was already out of sight, but would have been even more so than it already was. If you haven't already subscribed, would appreciate you doing so. So yeah, this won't be very long as there's not a lot to dissect, there's not a lot to take from these games. It really was just game management for the whole 90 minutes for Aberdeen and Hibs. Games did finish a bit tighter, especially in Aberdeen's case. They actually suffered a defeat, 2-0 defeat to Häcken in Sweden, but there was weirdly some positives to take for Aberdeen. They looked pretty good going forward again, albeit didn't score. J. Manning Thomas looks like he's going to be a big player for Aberdeen this season, and the link-up play and the way he's able to just hold the ball, and he's also got a fairly decent shot on him as well. Looks like he could be a really quite a surprise package almost for Aberdeen. I think a few fans, both of Aberdeen fans and fans outside of that, would have perhaps raised eyebrows that when Aberdeen decided to sign him from Livingston. He's 30 years old. He had offers in, I think, Asia. David Martindale said at the end of last season. And Aberdeen interest sort of came from nowhere, really. It looked certain that he was going to go abroad and sort of take the money option, if you will, but clearly he's got a lot of ambition to succeed at this sort of level, playing Europe again, as well, like he did for Arsenal right back at the start of his career. And yeah, he looks like he's going to be a fairly solid player for them. Defensively, of course, Aberdeen need a bit of work. Perhaps with this season under Stephen Glass, it looks like quite an exciting team he's building. Perhaps they will be a wee bit inconsistent. They will be very Jekyll and Hyde, like you've seen this week. They won the 5-1 against Häcken and then lose 2-0, albeit it wasn't like a disastrous performance. The game was already done. And it was just a case of seeing it out. Declan Gallagher made his debut from the bench and got booked before coming on. Must be some sort of record or some sort of football first, at least in Scottish football. I mean, that's pretty something. But from what I can tell, from watching him quite a fair bit at Mullow last season and the way he talks on the park, I'm hardly surprised he's got a booking for dissent or saying too much. Let's just say that. But yeah, fairly comfortable for Aberdeen. It's a 2-0 defeat. They'll learn lessons from it, but it doesn't really matter. They got through 5-3 in aggregate, and it looked a really tricky tie on paper, and they got through no bother. So, well done to them. In terms of Hibs, they won 2-1 against Santa Coloma. Santa Coloma did give them a wee scare. They did go ahead in the first, about 20 minutes to go before Jamie Murphy, Daniel Mackay, who I think looked really good in pre-season for Hibs, and he's looked really good in that Santa Coloma game again. Looks like he could be a really decent player after signing from Inverness, left winger, 20 years old. And yeah, fairly comfortable for Hibs as well. I think they didn't really need to get the first game. And if they did need to up the tempo, they could have taken the game away, but there was no need to. They started making changes on the hour mark. They've got the Hibs v Mullow, of course, on Sunday, as have Aberdeen v Dundee United. Perhaps that was in the back of these two teams' minds in terms of they both get fairly difficult fixtures. Dundee United, Aberdeen's always a tasty fixture, and Mullow at third part won't exactly be an easy test, especially with a 4,500 capacity home crowd for Hibs, but on top of that as well, 2,000 Hibs fans, so 6,500 fans potentially at that game could make for a really decent spectacle on Sunday atmosphere-wise. So yeah, it was fairly straightforward stuff for Hibs this weekend as well. Should say as well, Josh Campbell in the middle of the park for Hibs was brilliant again, and yeah, he's another one who looked good in pre-season. He hasn't started since the Paul Heckingbottom era. Hibs has spent time on loan Edinburgh City last year, but Jack Ross speaking after the game saying he more than merited a start in the Andorran game.
He deserved to play tonight. He's had a good pre-season. He had a good loan spell at Edinburgh City last year. And he's only 20 still. I think he had a taste of first team football a couple of years ago, like when Neil was still manager, and then we put him out on loan. And yeah, as I said, he's had a good pre-season, deserved to play tonight. With the young team out tonight with 5, I think started 22 and under, which is a pretty young team to play in Europe. And pleased for Josh because he's a Hibs fan, desperate to play for his club, desperate to do well for it. And as I mentioned earlier, he's deserving of the opportunity. And by producing the type of performance he did tonight, he gives himself every chance to be involved in these games coming up as well.
In terms of the next round, I would say Hibs have got the considerably more difficult time. Start with Aberdeen. No, Aberdeen have got Breidablik. I believe Motherwell played Breidablik. When was it? Maybe 2010, 2011 era under Craig Brown or Stuart McCall. And they put out Austria Vienna at the second qualifying round, so they won't be an easy task. Breidablik clearly got something about them to put out that sort of calibre of team, albeit I don't think Austria Vienna, perhaps the team they were maybe 5-6 years ago. But that was a pretty decent sized shock for this stage in the Conference League. Perhaps there's teams, I've seen a few other shocks as well. I think I think there was 4 or 5 of the bigger boys sort of went out at that stage. So Aberdeen have benefited from that. They have now probably favourites to get into the playoff round, which gives them a huge chance of potentially reaching group stage football in Europe, which would be a huge boost to the finances of Aberdeen as well, with the money that comes with qualifying for these sort of things. You would like to think they're the favourites, albeit it won't be an easy task, especially that away leg. I'm pretty sure a lot of the parts over there are Astro as well, but Aberdeen fairly used to that by this point as well. So should be an interesting time. That Hibs, meanwhile, have got a team at Aberdeen also know very well, Rijeka. Aberdeen seem to play Rijeka every couple of years under Derek McInnes, but it's now Hibs' turn to play them. Rijeka have got a pretty interesting player up front for them. You may have heard of Josip Durmic. He was at Norwich, well capped. I think he's 35 capped by Switzerland, scored 10 goals. I think it might even be double figures. I think the last time I checked, so it might change by the time we watch. I think it was 8 goals in 16 matches, which is a pretty fearsome record. He will be a huge player that Hibs need to deal with next week. That's going to be a tough assignment, I think, for Hibs to get through that tie. I'd say it's going to be tight. I'd say maybe 55-45 Rijeka's favour. Just with the experience they've got in Europe, Jack Ross saying that perhaps his side will grow in experiences to go through European games together. So yeah, but Hibs more than capable of winning this tie. They've got the first leg at Easter Road. I would have previously said that having the away leg first is better. You can maybe nick that away goal or two, and then you know what you're having to do at home. Then the away goal doesn't matter. Probably better to start at home. You get a 2 or a 3-0 win at home. I mean, that's very idealistic, but you get a 2 or a 3 goal lead, then taking over to your away leg, and then you can just sit in and hope for the best. So who knows? I think it's a much more difficult assignment for Hibs than it is Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen will be really disappointed if they don't get through Breidablik, despite the fact they will still pose a fairly decent task, whereas Hibs, I don't think there would be any real great shame in going out to Rijeka. But that's all we've got time for on this. Hope you have enjoyed it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Plenty of stuff over the weekend. We'll have a Hibs preview to the game against Motherwell on Sunday morning before that game kicks off at 4:30. We'll have a review of Dundee v St Mirren on Monday, and then we'll have another doing lots and lots of Hibs stuff because there's lots of changes at Hibs at the moment. We'll also be hearing from Ben Kenzel at some point next week as well, after his appointment as chief executive during the week thereafter. Was lastly chief operating officer at Norwich City, so we'll also hear from him at some stage next week. So plenty going on, so do subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of it, and until next time.